the beautiful morning of sunrise photography at the beach that I had planned. Got off to a disappointing start. I misjudged what time there'd be nice pretty color in the sky. So, Environment Canada, or whoever, I don't know, Garmin, someone who decides what time sunrise is at, it said 5:28, so I figured, oh, no problem. Get to the beach around 5:15 or so. We'd have some nice colors. Well, apparently not. I left my house at 4:50 this morning, and this is what the sky looked like. And I got to the beach I had planned to go to. Well, in the past, you used to be able to access this beach. It's a provincial park, so typically you have to pay, like in the summer. But normally, you know, during weird times of day, like in the morning and at night, they just normally leave their gates open so you can kind of just drive up to the beach. Not anymore. So that flustered me, and I was upset. Oh, and also, you can't have dogs at any provincial parks on beaches in New Brunswick anymore, which I understand people who have bad behaved dogs without leashes causing havoc for other people, but no dogs at all, like a blanket statement, is just ridiculous. And if you have a well-behaved dog on a leash, there's absolutely no reason they shouldn't be allowed at the beach. Okay. Thank you for listening to me whine and complain for a minute. Now I'm gonna try and find some images to take and cheer myself up because I'm in a bad mood now. I'm just walking down the beach, and this might just me being privileged, but yeah, I don't know. It's a nice beach. It's not particularly picturesque, especially without light coming through. I was hoping for some nice golden light. You know, the sun's still kind of coming up. I don't think that'll happen. Although there's not really much interest, like there's no trees or rocky cliffs here. The one thing that did stand out to me were sort of these green seaweed piles. And as the waves roll in and out, and they create like the white foam, there could be an image there, so I'll work around here and see what I can find. So, my plan is for the image, get as wide as I can, which admittedly isn't super wide. It's 18 mils on a APS-C sensor. Oh, I just touched my lens. I thought the lens cap was still on. Sorry, so that's 27-ish millimeters on a full frame equivalent. But I'm gonna get nice and wide and try and capture the green seaweed in the foreground with some of the waves coming in. And then maybe some nice light and clouds in the background. But I think there'll be a smaller portion of the image because there's not really much interest over there. So I'm just gonna move a little bit farther down than I was a minute ago, just because there wasn't quite enough seaweed in the foreground for my liking. I think I want the greens to kind of be a dominant aspect in the frame. So I've just moved down a little bit farther where there's a fairly big section of it here. Well, the composition is pretty straightforward. I have the seaweed sort of in the bottom third going up diagonally. The sky is like a sixth of the image as a strip across the top. And then in the top left corner, you have the water with the waves crashing in. And sort of just a waiting game, waiting for a nice wave, timing it correctly, and hoping to get a nice exposure. I'm shooting at a 1/10 of a second on a tripod because I really want the sand and the seaweed to be tack sharp, but I don't mind a little bit of motion in the water as the waves are rolling in pretty fast, so I like to be able to represent what I'm seeing in the image. I know in that last clip I said I was using a 2-second timer, but it was too hard to time it right to get the waves crashing in exactly where I wanted them. So I ended up switching to a burst mode and then just taking a lot of images at once. And I think I got a couple I'm fairly happy with, so I'll share them with you now. The image you just saw, that's my favorite of the, honestly, probably 50 or 60 images I just rattled off. And it's because the way the water crashing in is sort of following the same shape in the sands and like creating this curved S pattern as the seaweed is. I guess that makes sense because the waves probably deposited the seaweed there. But that to me is the most pleasing and I'm fairly happy with it. It doesn't really come across very well on this camera, but there's some cool light rays shooting through that little break in the cloud right there. So maybe there's something there as well. So I've just put on my 55 to 200 mil lens, which obviously will give me substantially more reach than I had previously with my other lens. And I'm gonna try and take some images of clouds. There is an osprey over there somewhere diving and fishing. That's pretty freaking cool too. Well, I didn't get a picture of the osprey fishing because he's way too far away, but he was successful. He caught some kind of a flounder and he flew right over me. I got a terrible picture of it, but I think it's cool because you can see the fish in his talons. Well, the sun's coming out. Looks like it's gonna be a nice day. Hopefully it's a little bit cooler than the last couple days. It's been uncharacteristically warm. It's been 35, feels like 45, 46, which is just way too warm. It's uncomfortable, unbearable. So I tend to not really plan my photography outings very much. The extent of what I do is decide where I'm going, typically the day before. And really the only purpose of that is to have sort of a time frame of when I need to leave if I'm trying to get there for sunset or sunrise, which oftentimes I don't even do. A lot of the time I'm just headed somewhere in the afternoon. And this morning is a great example of why I don't really think you need to plan that much, because the minimum amount of planning I did today went wrong. Mind you, I could have done more research and figured out that the gates were closed, but that one's on me. But even if you plan something like perfectly, things are gonna go wrong. And at least I know for myself, if I put a lot of time into something, planning it, and it doesn't go exactly the way I wanted it to, then I get really frustrated, which almost happened this morning. And I almost turned around as soon as I got to this beach because the light wasn't super spectacular, wasn't feeling super inspired, and I was just grumpy and angry, which is never a fun way to start your day. But I hung around, and I think I got some images I'm pretty happy with. So don't bother over planning. Things are gonna go wrong, and unless you are very comfortable and easily adaptable to new situations, it's not worth planning because things will change. Just have a rough idea of what you want to do and go with it that way. I'm gonna try and quickly take another image. I just took I just took a picture on my phone to post a story on Instagram, and kind of a nice scene in front of me right now. So I'm gonna put the wider lens back on and see if I can capture it. Man, switching lenses on the beach is such a nightmare for me. I am always terrified I'm gonna drop something in the sand, or sand's gonna blow away, or I'm gonna accidentally throw sand into my bag, which I've done before. It's a stressful experience sometimes. And I just threw sand in my bag. I'll have to clean that when I get home. So I just took this picture on my phone, and I really like it because there's some cool separation between the sand, the water, and the clouds. And if I can frame it right, not quite equal parts, but it's like the bottom third is sand, the middle third is ocean, and then a sixth is blue sky, and then a sixth is clouds, and it's all like straight lines, and I think it looks really, really cool. I'm gonna try and find a little patch of seaweed that's a little bit more picturesque to get in the foreground as well. So I took that image in both landscape and portrait orientation, and I'll share them both with you now. And at least sitting here at the beach looking at them on my camera, I can't tell what I prefer. So I'll share them both. Please let me know which one is your favorite in the comments and why, because I see the appeal of the taller portrait orientation, but also there's something really pleasing about the landscape orientation with the length, but then the the 3 or 4 layers stacked on top of each other. So I'm curious what you think. With that, I'll see you on the next one.